All right, so we've got Corey Turnbull today. I coach Corey. I'm fortunate enough to call Corey a friend as well. He was in mine and Elena's wedding party. He lives about 90 minutes north of us in the town of Smith Falls, which once had a chocolate factory, then a weed factory, and I don't know what it is now. But lots of fun stuff there. And Corey's an amazing athlete in his own right, and also coaches with Team Run Run as well. And we thought it would be cool to kind of give a glimpse behind some of the coaching and the results Corey's had. And I think he's got a really cool story that I think a lot of listeners can resonate with. So with that, thanks Corey for jumping on.
Oh, thank you. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be good. We haven't caught up in a while, save for
Yeah.
spending lots of time out of Elena's FKT there. But I thought it would be cool, like we were saying the other day, for people to kind of see a little bit more about you and the story you
hmm
have. And so, if you were to introduce yourself to a new runner, what kind of runner would you say you are? Because you've crossed a lot of domains, man. Triathlon, ultra, marathon, and everything. So how would you answer that?
Um, that's a good question. How would I answer that? Yeah, I mean, so where I am today, and I say that today because I always look at myself as kind of this evolving work.
Yeah.
Um, where I am today, I am basically just focused on road running. Over the years, I started running back in 2008, and over the years I started just on the 5 and 10Ks and working on that, and bridged into duathlon and triathlons, got into ultras, did some single day ultras, did a stage race once up in Gatineau, and kind of motored through there. Since about 2017, I've strictly been focused on road running. Um, I go back to trails to enjoy it. I realized that as I was getting involved with more and more road running and trying to decide if I wanted to go back to ultras or not, it was one of those situations where it was like, well, I actually like going to trails to get away from the road. So if it becomes my sole focus again, I'm probably not going to enjoy it quite as
Yeah.
much. So I allow that to stay where it needs to be when I need to just go and be in nature and blow off steam, and I keep my focus over here. So
Yeah, no, like I said, you've done everything, and we've had a fun last four, or it's 2026, 5-ish years now.
yeah,
You,
yeah. I
you
think
know,
I was trying to figure that out earlier too,
yeah,
and I think it's been about since 2019, 2020 that you and I
yeah,
started working together for sure. So
absolutely. And I've been fortunate. My family, and I've been fortunate to know your beautiful family and your wife and your daughters that you obviously spend a lot of time with, and you somehow managed to fit in running and training and a full time job, but. Your family's obviously a big support system, but I know there's a
yes,
lot more to the why about your running and your goals and what you're chasing. And so I always think it's cool. I think I did an episode on this way back, but for athletes to kind of hear your moment where you got into sport, because for so many athletes they didn't start as high school kids who you and I have
yeah,
coached and continued on, and I
yeah.
know that wasn't your way. And so with whatever you want to share, take us back to how you got into endurance sport and what it's kind of meant for you.
Sure. Um, I'm going to go way back for a minute
Yeah,
because running for me is wasn't my primary. In fact, I didn't growing up. I didn't really have a sport. There was sports just weren't really developed unless you're a hockey player. There wasn't anything for the rest of us, and I wasn't a hockey player. My family wasn't in a position where they could afford hockey. Um, Running had always kind of piqued my interest, but as a child and as a teenager, and at one point I had came in and I said, grade nine, and I was, like 5'3", 100 pounds. Like I was really tiny coming into grade nine, and I'm not a big guy now, but and I had wanted to run with the cross country team at the local high school that was there, and it was a country again, no real running program, but there was a runner on the cross country program. And I'd gone to the coach, which was the gym teacher, because that's the crossover, right?
yeah, yeah.
I said, like, I want to run cross country, and his response to me was, "No, you're not fast enough." And like that stuck with me for a long time, right? Because I don't how he meant it. I don't really know to this day, and but as a kid who's insecure and who's he's just looking for his place. What that teacher told me at that point in time was, you're not good enough. You're not a runner. Don't even try to do it, right? Because you look at these people at that point and with a little bit of um, esteem, and you're like, oh well, I guess he knows something I don't. I suck. So I carried that for many years, and it was like 2008 actually, Brant, when I actually said to my wife, Diana and I got married in '98, and it was 2008 when I needed something like. I am prone to anxiety and things like that, and I'm very open about that. And I needed something, right? Because to get me through my kind of burn some of the stress off and just do some of the things I'm doing. But I do have a bit of a competitive edge too. Like I like to do things. I like the feeling of effort. I like to be able to work towards goals and stuff like that. And you know that. I'm always trying to plan things. You're like, all right, calm down. But yeah, so I just started running, and when I started running, it was like I have no goal, no purpose. I have an old pair of running shoes that I bought 20 years ago that I don't know if they're going to work or not, but I didn't care. I just wanted to do something. So I started running, and I was doing this loop around the house, and it was a 3K loop, and I thought it was 5K, and it was actually a funny story too, because as I had been going around and doing it for a while, I was doing this loop at like 16, 17 minutes. And I'm thinking, so I start, as you always do, you start looking up average times for 5Ks, and I'm like, geez, I'm doing a 5K in like 16, 17 minutes, and national standards up around 15 minutes. I'm doing pretty well, right? So there's a bit of a letdown when I actually realized I was actually only running 3K. But yeah, so I kept going and just, wanting to just keep going. But then I actually signed up for a race once at a suggestion of somebody that I was friends with at the time who had been into running. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the energy. I fell in love with the people. The running community, it's very difficult to explain if you're not there. And I mean, looking from the outside in, people can say, oh, that's a lot of, support, and they're just a lot of, but the reality is it's real and authentic for the most part. And, I love that feeling of it. And that's kind of where I started getting into it from there. How I would describe myself in that regard would be, as I'm someone who came into it late, has always wanted to get into something to keep me competitive, to take that edge off, to take that mental health side of things, and keep me going forward. And then from there, it's bridged into like triathlon and ultras and duathlon, and it's taken me on these amazing journeys and met these amazing people like yourself and Elena, and I was on the Team Canada duathlon team, and like all these things. It's just been such an amazing journey, and within that, it's taken me, like, I've been able to do some pretty cool stuff. Like I ran across the Presidential Traverse in New Hampshire with some friends from Ottawa a few years ago, back in I guess it was actually 2015, maybe 2016, and just seeing some pretty cool stuff. And that's what running is to me, and that's why I want to share it with people, and that's how I would describe myself to people too. It's like, I want to share this with people, but I also have been down the road where I've made mistakes, and again, I am, I carry this. If I make a mistake, I'm going to own it. I'm going to admit it. But I also want to help people not make those mistakes. So again, when I first started running, right, it was like ramping up the mileage way too much too soon. Got shin splints because my body just wasn't ready for that. Thought I could do a half marathon in 3 weeks when I go from 0 to half marathon. Which is actually why I ended up getting into duathlon, because I couldn't run for a little while I was doing shin splints. So I had to do something, which was spinning, and that got me into that. So it's just been an amazing journey. So where I want to go with it is I want to be able to help people. I want to, problem solve their cases, because mine isn't the standard. I was running my entire life. It's like, no, I came into it. I made mistakes. I know what it's like with a busy life, trying to raise kids. I did a lot of my Ironman running when my kids were quite young. My wife, Diana, God bless her, she was an amazing support for me, and really handled some of the heavy lifting on the weekends while I was doing Ironman training. That's where I want to help people, and that's how I would describe my coaching and where I've come from.
Yeah, and I think that stuff's gold, right? Like so many athletes that I coach, and I know you coach as well, have made those mistakes, self-coached, and that's oftentimes where people come to coaches. They've stagnated, they've plateaued,
Yep.
they can't get out of the injury
Yep.
cycle, et cetera. And I
Yep.
think having coaches like yourself who have done that, like I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I wish nobody went through this
Yeah.
stuff, right? But having coaches
Yeah.
like you that have gone through it, that are able to just go, hey, wait, I've seen that. I
Yeah.
see, I feel, I empathize with what you're going through here. But if we just pause, or we just pivot a little bit,
Yeah.
or we just zig when
Yeah.
we should have zagged, kind of thing, right? And that's
Yeah.
that experiential learning that only having done it a bunch, right, will
Right.
bring forward. So yeah, your athletes are lucky to have that experience, as painful as it may have been, as you went through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I know we've had a lot of great performances in the last handful of years that
Mhm.
I've coached you, but pre working with you, you also had a lot of amazing performances. So what are like two or three that really stand out to you? And maybe they're not the time or the placing, right? It could be, but maybe they're not. That stand out to you because of like how you trained for it, the grit, how you showed up on the day, like those kind of the stories behind the results that we don't always see. Which ones stand out to you over your career?
Um, I think one of the I've had a lot of success since meeting you because you mentioned the plateau. Obviously, like I mean, you and I have done some pretty cool things. I've hit a lot of the goals I was going to, and I had hit that plateau. Previous to that, I was working, kind of doing my own thing, and I had worked with some coaches. The two that I really am proud about, I think um, prior to you, there was the one ultra. It was the Bad Beaver Ultra, and a friend Ray and Serena and Matt had decided they were going to do a series of ultra races up in Gatineau. That was 2014, I believe, and it was a 3-day stage race through the Ghats. Love that park. Ran a heck of a lot of time in that park. And the first day, I think it was like a 55K race. You have to carry your gear, your nutrition, your hydration on your back. They do have like water stops where you can refill your water and stuff, but there's nothing else. It's pretty self-sustaining. Carry your sleeping bag in your back. They would take, if you had an air mattress, they would take it to the next location.
How
So it
kind
was
of them.
55 the first day, yeah, 75 the second day, and I think it was 21 or 22 the last day. And all through Gatineau and through the entire park and Wakefield in the area like that. A lot of elevation and stuff like that. And I was up front basically all 3 days and ended up crossing the line first through that entire thing. And that one was a big one because it was like the civic weekend of August, and it was stinking hot. Like, oh my God, it was like 40 some degrees with the humidity. And in the bush, you would think, okay, well, you got the trees, right? It's shady and things it holds the humidity, right? It's like really holding the humidity in there. So, like, I mean, it was stinking hot. And, I remember coming down the one side of a trail, Wolf, for those who might know it. And my shorts were falling off me because the weight I had lost. This was the day 2, probably just after about 5 hours into the 70K, and my shorts were. I was holding my shorts on me because they were so drenched with sweat, and I had lost so much weight that they weren't actually staying up anymore. So I'm holding my shorts up as I'm coming down this hill. And I was just like, what am I doing? Because you get to the bottom of it down on Meech Lake, and then you got to go back up again, up the escarpment. It's like, oh my God. But I made it through that. And it was one of those ones where I realized that, you start up in the morning, you don't want to. You're stiff, you're sore, you didn't sleep well because you're in a room with, 20 other people who are all, snoring or making noises and groaning because they're in pain, and you're not sleeping well. So, and you're eating as well as you can, but I mean, still, when you're in the middle of those situations, you don't eat normally by any means. You're pounding sugar into your body through the day, throwing your GI into a total disarray type of thing, as Elena found out with her 100K. So I'm pretty proud of that one because, it taught me a lot about my mental strength. And it was like every part of me didn't want to do that and didn't want to start up in the morning. And all I did was stay focused on the moment. And this is really where some of my mindfulness stuff, my meditation and all these type of things I started getting more involved in that, because I started realizing that, the moment is a very big factor in this, and that there are points where you're going to come across where everything about what you're doing you don't want to do anymore, but you got to let it pass and you got to keep going and keep trying. And you do that physical check. It's like, okay, am I sore or injured? I'm not. I'm just sore right now, and I'm tired. And the fatigue I'm feeling is more of an emotion than the actual physical being tired right now. So I can manage this emotion. I can handle it. So really, that one was good. That was one of my most proudest ones prior to you. The other one was Canada Man. It was the first year, and I was in 2016. I think I was pretty much finished with triathlon, but then they saw Canada Man come up for the first time. I was like, well, I gotta do it because it's everything everything I love. It was the triathlon, it was the cycling, it was down in Megantic. It was running up a mountain trails with stuff. Like, it was just fantastic. So I did a lot of training for that one, and that's actually my last iron distance triathlon I did. I capped it off, and likewise, I mean, there was a lot of moments in that race that, because there's just so much elevation in it, and so much you're not going to go into that in a flat Wisconsin iron triathlon and expect a PB. You're going into that really to test your resolve and to get through the race. And that one was good for me, because you're starting at that time, the race started at like 4:30 in the morning, and it was pitch black, and the swim, like, you're swimming out to these flashing lights with the moon in the bay, but it's like scary swimming in pitch black water. Like, it is not normal. Like, everything about it makes you want to actually not do it. It's cold. It's But you know what? It's one of those things that when I was on the run going up the side of the hill up to the observatory, like, again, it was back to that. Everything about me wanted to stop. There was nothing, my stomach wasn't accepting gels anymore, so I hadn't had any for about 90 minutes or so, and it was the last 8K. And my friend Dale, he was running me up, type of thing. But again, it was back to that mental resolve, and it was like, okay, I remembered Bad Beaver. I didn't really want to, you kept going from that, and this one kept me going, and that's propelled me to some of the stuff that you and I have done, and that's why I don't give up, and even I try to stay with the plan as much as I can, because even when it's like, what, you'll send me the email, how you feeling today? Okay. Or great, or yeah, I wish I could have stayed inside today. So. And I think I think I did it like 13 hours, and I was like third in my age cat at that point in time. Like, I was within the top 10% of it, really. But it was like, for me, I was quite proud of that. And of course, because I'm on the other side of Masters for sure now, right? Like, I mean, I'm 54. That would have been what, 47, maybe 48 at the time. So I'm starting to feel that a little bit more than I had before. But I don't want to use it necessarily as an excuse, but I want to use it as an aid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it changes kind of the recovery patterns and different stimulus that might be required. Like, right now, we're doing a rep phase coming out of a bit of a knee layoff, just to get some of that, like, neuromuscular and testosterone up. But you had, like, I mean, you've now, like, crewed people for Canada Man too within the group and helped them out and provide it and such. And I think, if I look back on the time, we've worked together, I think that Boston race that you did where you broke 3 for the first time as a Masters runner, I wanted to touch on that with you, because I know a lot of people want to break 3. A lot of people want to qualify for Boston. And then there's, like, even more people like, I'd love to run sub 3 at Boston, right? And you did that, as you noted, well past the beginning age group of Masters runner. Not saying that in a derogatory sense, to be clear, but what was that like for you? Because if I recall, that was the, like, rainy gross year. Is that correct, or was it the warm year? Yeah, the rainy gross year. And so I'm just gonna give a little bit of a backstory, but, like, I did my first marathon with you in Mississauga, and you were trying to break 3 there. And we started off first 15K together. I think you had to stop and go pee, and then I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go for it. And then I ran what I ran with a very rough last 7K because I didn't run very smart in the middle. And then you came in just shy of that 3-hour barrier. Obviously a little devastated, upset. It was a windy day. It was gross out there, to be honest. And then we came back that spring to Boston. And so I'll let you pick up the story for there, because I think that's a race that shows so much about who you are as an athlete, not because of the result, but because you came close enough with still an amazing result for your age and ability, etc. in Mississauga, but didn't let that kind of rest on your laurels. You're like, no, I'm still going after Boston this year. I still want to do that. And so pick it up for me there on terms of what that year of racing at Boston was like.
Yeah, sure. So, I'll go back to actually when I first started working with you. I was mentioning that like I had plateaued and I wasn't getting any further along. But I have this, I don't know, it's a silly confidence that I really think I can do something. I really think I could break 5K, which we did, the 18-minute 5K barrier, which we did, and then breaking the 3-hour barrier was another big goal for me, and. I had tried it. We tried it in Mississauga, and that went a little south. But that's the marathon, right? Like it's unforgiving. And the day that happens, we were running along the shoreline there at Mississauga, and the winds and the waves are literally soaking us. And it wasn't supposed to be raining at all, but it was. It wasn't supposed to be windy, but it was. It was like, well, whatever. You just adapt. I was a little bit frustrated at that one though when I came in, because it was like, man, like. How much more do I have to give here? Like I'm trying so hard to break that 3 barrier. And then, do I really want to keep going at it? And, it's that 24-hour rule, right? Your 24 hours of happiness for doing a great race, or 24 hours of sadness for doing a crappy race. Well, the 24 hours goes by and it's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, like we have unfinished business. Let's do this. Sign up for Boston. And I had qualified for Boston a number of times, but I had never gone down to Boston because I think I'd said to you, I don't want to go to Boston until I break 3 hours on the qualifier, which is, I know it sounds probably a little arrogant, but it was kind of what I had in mind in my journey. But it's like, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's go to Boston. There was a group of us going down, and that meant there was going to be a lot of us training and stuff like that. And we had a good ramp up. And part of the reason I like working with you is because you have found, I always say, the recipe. And I know Knobs had agreed with me the one day on that. We talked about, you found my recipe to make it work, right? Like we all have this blind side when we're working by ourselves. And I've acknowledged that a number of times with you. And like you found the right recipe because you understand how I train, how I want to work. You also watch for the little signals on me. It's like, Corey, let's just, because I'll grind myself into the ground if I'm not careful, type of thing, right? Like, I mean, I'm going to be out there like this morning, right? Like it was okay. So we went into Boston, and if I remember, we had talked about different strategies, and I think the one thing that stuck out in my mind was when we had decided that the words was cautious confidence, right? Yeah, you've had a great lead in, we know you can do this now. Let's see what the conditions are going to be. And I think we played it a little bit cautiously. Like we didn't want to go out because, again, in Boston is, looking at the course and knowing the course, you want to be careful on it because it can really make you feel far faster than you are at the beginning and take it all away from you at the back end. Yep. So we had actually set up my run to be like a training day with kind of the way we get down the paces, we allow the paces to flow with the train, and then see what the last 5K have for us. And we did that, and it ebbed and flowed, and it worked really, really well. The last 5K weren't fun. My coming down that back half, it was like, okay, you know what, you got to hold tight there, calves. I know you want to quit on me, but it's like, oh, where's that knee coming from? I don't know what that is about, but okay. But the adrenaline also brings you in on that last 5K type of thing. And I think as it was cold or cool. Yeah. And certainly there was a rain and a mist, and I actually remember when I crossed the finish line. I think the heavens opened up, and it was just like a torrential downpour, and it's like, you got to go down through the corral. It's like a kilometer away almost. And Diana, my wife, she was sitting at a restaurant down the street, and I was like, oh my God, I'm hypothermic and soaked as I'm going down. But man, yeah, and I think we ended up around 258 or something like that. Yeah. And I broke 3, and I think it just goes to show that, like, I mean, you gotta stay confident, and you gotta stay optimistic. Mississauga was a bit of an ego buster, which I think was okay, because I think it put me into a position where it was like a little more realistic thinking, where it's like, okay, you know what, just because you're training well doesn't mean it's going to catch, but it doesn't mean it won't. But you can't give up. You have to just play the course with the course. You have to play the day with the day, and you just allow things to unfold where they are. You can't predict if you're going to get a calf cramp. You can't predict if your stomach's going to go south halfway through the race, but you have to at least put the effort in and try. And I think that's where I did. And yeah, when I crossed that finish line and I saw that I was going to break 3 hours, man, it was like, I can't even begin to say how happy I was. It was like, it had been that 6-7 year journey where I've been trying, and it was like, man, oh man, to do it there too, at that race where I wasn't going to go unless I broke the 3. I think it was just, all the pieces came together that day, and it was just like, oh, this was big for me, for sure.
Yeah, it was so cool. I think, if I recall, we were either at the same restaurant as your wife, or we all met up there. We popped by, and so we got to see you fresh, frigid from your like mile-long walk post race and stuff. So it was such a cool moment to see that all come together, because I wasn't racing, so I was like tracking, right? I was like, oh my God, he's doing it. But like, you're right, in Boston, you never know, right? Like that last 5K to 5 miles really can make or break your day and not be fun. So that's cool. I mean, it's one of the reasons I want to look back on all this stuff is because I feel like, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but all these experiences, the good, the bad, doing the ultra, doing the trail, the Ironman, Boston, hitting some of your goals, missing some of your goals, has probably really helped galvanize and shape who you are as a coach and what your coaching philosophy is. And so what do you think you've taken away, or what stands out the most from you as you look at, now coaching more? And I know you've coached for a long time, we can talk about that, but your coaching philosophy, what does that look like based on kind of all the experiential learning you've had over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what does that mean to me? There's a lot of pieces to that, right? And I mean, I think it was you may have said to me one point, one of my down days on training, it's like, there's no single training day that defines you as an athlete or defines your ability. It's just part of it. And I think where I sit now, and I look at people and I talk to people, it's, when I first got into it and I really first started trying to compete, I was like, oh, this is the way it's rigid. It has to follow it. You have to keep building. You have to keep getting faster. And I think what I've learned is that training is only something we do. Mm-hmm. As a master's athlete, I'm not a professional athlete, and I like to compete, mm-hmm. and I like to try to present as best as I can, but I'm not a professional athlete. So training is something I do, and then I pay to go to places. And actually, in our sport, most of the professionals pay too. But
Knobs did for Marathon Project. Trust me. Yeah.
But it's something we do, and life has to work around it. And what I've come to the realization is that life does impact my training and how things are going, and I have to be patient with myself, and I have to show a little bit of compassion with myself, and understand that if I'm in a particularly rough phase at work, because I do work in healthcare, and things are mm-hmm. moving a lot. I have to accept the fact that I may not just be performing as well as I can be in my training. And again, it doesn't define what I am going to perform as, but that day is that day, and I have to accept that. And I think that, as I'm a coach, I look at it from that perspective with people too, and I talk to them. I had one, a young man that I was coaching at West Point for about a year recently. he had great visions for where he wanted to go, and I think we were definitely on the right path. But he also had a variable schedule that we had to deal with, and we just had to allow it to ebb and flow as it did. And then I have some other folks right now that I work with too, and single moms, single fathers, things like that, and these are all parts of our life that we have to work around to make us successful. But if we take that stuff into account when we're planning the cycles and we can have, honest conversations, we can make the person more successful in general, as opposed to that vision of where you want. And this is where Strava is dangerous to that point too, right? Because I've learned that, I like Strava because you can kind of check in, you can say, hey, great run, doing this type of stuff. But I can't compare myself to somebody who is 25 years younger than me, who may not have the responsibility that in the role I've got, or the person that's the single father who's working 3 jobs and taking his master's right now. It's we all have our own story, so let's find our coaching pattern and recipe, as I call it with you. Let's find that what makes that work for you. Because I think that is really what I found is that, and you've said to me a few times, again, this is where, again, having a physical coach that knows you, that you can talk to, and me now, you watch for my signs, and you're like, okay, you know what, let's just cool you off for a little bit, because I'm not sure everything that's going on, but I think you're ready. I think we can just bring you down a little bit and, allow things to settle. And then, they do. And I think that's what I try to take in with my coaching too.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things I always talk to people about, and I'm sure this is similar to what you're doing, is, my plan has to work for you, not you working for the plan kind of thing, right? Like anybody can just throw a spreadsheet out or here's a week or whatever, but the recipe, as you call it, or we've talked about in your training, is about you. Like you are the ingredients. I'm adding the finishing touches, so to speak. We're baking a cake, but I think it's so great to see. I was just talking about this. I think the episode came out this morning as a filming with Knobs and Elena about the Marathon Project, and we were talking about how cool it is to see, you guys like Martina, Elena, Knobs, and a few others that I've coached over the years be coaches, and that coaching tree kind of spread out because obviously I can only coach so many people. I'm not the right fit for everybody. Being open and honest, and it gives more. And so I love seeing that you're doing that and be able to help athletes kind of in that vein. So cool. How are you enjoying coaching right now? I know. If we go back a second before you answer that, you've coached high school, you've coached adults, you've been doing this for, I think, about a decade, if I recall, with the high schoolers and such. And so what keeps you kind of coaching right now in terms of, the love of it and being able to work with people? What really makes it like a great thing for you? Because as you said, you work full time. You don't have to coach, right? But there's obviously a joy and a drive that's coming from it. So speak to that for a sec.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy... I really enjoy helping people find their groove, their potential. And oftentimes people will come over, they've tried coaching a couple of times, but haven't found the right coach. And I always, I'm always very open with people when they first come on too. It's like, if this isn't working for you, just, it's okay. Just no pressure, no stress. I've been there. I've had different coaches over the years. Sometimes they work for a while and then the relationship just doesn't work beyond that, and sometimes it works for quite a while. So just let me know. But what I enjoy doing is really helping people figure out what they can. A lot of times they come and they're like, I don't know how you're going to figure this out. I've got to work this shift. I've got this responsibility. I've got this and stuff. And I always say, well, let me do that. Let me worry about that. I'll get, tell me what you can do. Let's be honest. And, I've got a new piece with coming up right now about honesty, like personal honesty. Because I think that's a big thing too, right? Like I really want people to just be honest with what you think you can do and what you can't do. Like there's what we want to do, there's what we think we can do, but then there's really what we are doing, and what we can do. And then I like to build that for people. And I like to show them, okay, well, let's create some order out of that chaos. And maybe you can't dedicate 7 days a week, which is totally fine. Most people can. That's the reality of it. but let's see what you can do with 3 to 4 days a week, and let's see how you respond. Let's start easy, start slow. I always tell people right off the front end, it's going to be boring for the first couple of weeks, but I want to watch that consistency. I want to watch, see what you're actually able to do. Are you actually able to hit 4 days a week, or do you start drifting really early? Because if you start drifting really early, then I can start readjusting things. So I like helping people get to that, where they are going with their potential, and see what they can actually do. There's people that come over and they're not sure what they can do. They just know they can do something. And then there's people who are like, they're basically on their last attempt at anything. And I like to be able to take them and show them and work with them so that they can actually see and build that confidence that, like, oh, there is a way for me to do this. I don't necessarily need to be as rigid as a professional athlete to meet my goals. And I think that for me is the big thing now. I had a program going with some teenagers at the local high school for a number of years, and it was good. But going into COVID, it kind of got disrupted, and a lot of things kind of broke apart. I came back to coaching, as you know, with Team Run, and it's been good. It's been really good. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and if someone who's listening is on the fence about coaching, because there's so many options, there's stock plans, there's AI coaching, there's individual coaches who talk to you, there's individual coaches who don't talk to you, right? There's so many options out there for the consumer. But what would you want them to know about your coaching? Well,
my coaching is going to, I'll be your biggest cheerleader to the level you want me to be, right? So, I mean, some people want to have conversations through the week. Some people don't. I can listen. I can hear. I can separate the fact from fiction, because we all do create our own narrative in our mind as well. And I can help people understand, okay, well, this is where we're what we're talking about, but I think that this is actually what the situation is. I think where we need to go with that. And I think that from my perspective, like, again, it's like I've fallen down so many times, and I've made the errors. What I can bring to the table is an understanding, is that, I hear you. I know what shin splints are like. I know how they take you out, and I know it's because, in my mind, when I started running, it was because I ramped my volume up too much, and I know how frustrating it is. So let's get you back online. Let's get you going again. You don't need to justify it to me. That's not what, you don't need to worry about me, hauling out the yardstick or anything like that. Like, this is just about, that adult to adult relationship. And I think that where I can take people and what I can do with them is actually create the chaos in their life that is, make it work for them, and then understand what it is they're telling me. It isn't so much that, I'm here, I'm a chat GPT module suggesting this. It's like, no, I'm a real person here. I can actually see that. And yeah, I know what chat may tell you that you should be doing this, and this week, but the reality is I know you. Yeah. I know what you're saying, and I think that this is going to work for you much better than that, because we bring that experience.
Yeah, the like, half jokingly, but it is actually a true story that I always use when people ask about the AI stuff. Is like, yes, the AI, maybe it knows physiologically that's what's best. I still question that, but let's give them that for a moment. It's like, they don't know that you're 9-month-old woke up at 2 a.m. and was puking all over you, and you're going on 3 hours of sleep, right? And so that's where, like, you are sure you could put that into the chat, and maybe it'll adapt, maybe it won't, depending on how you've set up your chat. Maybe it'll be a, David Goggins, get your ass out there kind of thing, or be like, no, take a day off. And the answer is it's probably up the middle relative to everything else an athlete has going on, and spotting that pattern. So it's an interesting world with all that stuff. I know I've seen some people come over from it. I think you have as well too. And it reminds me all the time, because I try to think about this. I'd be interested to hear your answer about the kind of progress that runners are capable of, but often underestimate. I know you've seen that in some of your training. We've talked about that with Breaking 3. You wouldn't do Boston before Breaking 3, but what are you seeing in coaching right now where runners are coming to you and they underestimate some of the progress they can actually make. Maybe it's a domain of training or their race potential or ability, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. One of the things that I always, people are coming in and what they're, one of the biggest things I always see um, is they just don't understand what fitness alone can do for them. What they hear from Strava, what they hear from David Goggins, what they hear from Chat, what they hear from all these other plans is that you need to be destroying yourself 5 days a week, 7 days a week in order to see any gain, or you're not a man, or you're not a woman, or you're not the person. And the reality is that it couldn't be further from the truth. It's like, number one, any real athlete that is just starting up, just routine and fitness build alone is going to get them farther than they would probably even recognize. And number two, you have to be smart about where you're planting your workouts, because you talked about this with Thomas on your breaking the marathon project about setting people up for their quality runs. In between that, those easy runs are easy runs and time based. It's not pace or distance based. It's like, I want you to be able to hit your quality. I don't care what you're doing over here on your easy days. That's what you do, but you don't, right? And I get that. But that's the thing, is like, there's this thought process out there that if you're not going 120% all the time, you're not an athlete. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And runners in particular have this ego that's built in, that they assume fast is better. Assume that I've been running a year, I should at least be, my easy run should therefore be 4:30 pace all the time. It's like, no, they actually shouldn't be. And I'm not going to say I'm not guilty of this either. This is one of the mistakes that I made too for many years, right? Well, I got to run under 5-minute paces if I want to break 3 hours. It's like, no, actually, that doesn't play into that. You're running. That's what is the most important thing. And I think that's what I see a lot of. So there's a whole thing, and then you get that. You have to, when runners are coming in, if they've got that in their mind, it takes a while to break that. They have to see it. So you have to figure out how to show them that it's okay to run easy as long as you're doing your quality where your quality is. But we don't double stack our quality. It's not back-to-back days. And, you will try to keep your quality away from your long run. Well, why? Because the long run, based on Daniels, a long run does actually qualify as a quality run too, in a lot of times. So if you're building distance. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that was probably the number one thing I tried to position out on that knob series, and one of the reasons why we showed the final surge stuff every week for him in that build. It's like, this guy's running 2:12 and he runs slower on his easy runs than most age groupers do.
Yep.
And like, so I think the discrepancy in miles sounds better, but it's like, he's more or less 5-minute miles for marathon pace, which is nuts, by the way, but 5-minute miles for marathon pace. And he runs close to 8-minute miles on his easy days. Right. Yeah. And I think that you're bang on with that. That's something I'm always touching base with athletes. But hey, you can slow down. You can slow down. Hey, go watch this series. I'm not saying it just to like promote my own series, but it's like, I just want to give you the proof that the guy who's the fastest guy I've ever coached runs slower than you do on your easy days.
Right. You'll
be okay if you slow down. Like it'll be all right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it reminds me, a lot of the guys that I've seen and gals that do really well at the marathon run their easy days slower than most of the other people around them.
Yeah.
Like, if I look at Elena, she runs relatively easy. Like, Kieran Lum never did a marathon. He is a 3:36 1500 meter runner. When I coached him, he was a 13:21 5K, 7:45 3K, and he would run 4:15s, 4:20s on his easy days. It's like, he's 3-4 minutes faster than you are over 5K, and he's running slower than you, right? And so I think you're bang on to point that out. Like, that is a key point for people listening, whether you're coached, not coached, you're doing PFITs or 80-20 or handsome, like whatever you're doing. I don't really care what your plan is. Just slow the heck down. It'll be way better for you. Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, Corey, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you coming on, and
thank you.
I'll link your coaching profile in the show notes. So if there's anybody interested in being coached by Corey, reach out. I've worked with him for years now. He's a close friend. I know he knows what he's doing, and he's a great fit for, I think, especially people who are busy and on the go, because he gets that life. He's raised a family and works hard at his day job, I know, and probably be able to help you out with all that stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate this, Brent. This been a lot of fun just chatting because we actually don't get a chance to actually just sit down and chat like this sometimes
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
So.
Yeah, we're talking almost every day via email or text, but
Yeah.
to actually like sit down, video, it's kind of fun. So who knows? Maybe we'll do something in the new year around one of your races or something.
That'd be awesome.
Sweet. Cool, man. Good to see you. We'll chat soon. And for anybody listening, his Team Run profile will be in the show notes. Take a look at his profile for you or anyone else who might be interested in coaching. He's probably a good fit for you.
Thank you, Brent.